Going to go into a conversation this hour, asking a number of difficult questions. And you might wonder what those are. We'll get into it just a minute, because learner safety in school is a totally different issue from what they're actually learning. Their safety now is what we go into in this hour. And already our guests are in the hot seats this morning, and we're joined in the Situation Room by Silas David Obuhatsa, who is the National Chairman of the Parents Association, joins us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Karibu sana, mzuri sana, doing well.
Niko ndani kabisa.
Uko ndani kabisa?
Ndani kabisa.
That's great. Let's get into it. Good morning and thank you for being here.
Yes.
Also joined by educationist Sheikh Maro is here with us this morning. Bwana Maro, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much.
We're looking into a number of issues today. Learner safety in schools. There have been too many horror stories over the last couple of weeks, and these are what has been reported. And as usual is the case, when they're reported, then we start to shout without looking at the problem that has been there forever. And so then for us to have an opportunity to discuss that, we'll get into that in a minute. But as you know, we, or may not know, we go into the African continent every week. We land on a different country. We come back with their proverbs. We'd love to get your interpretations of that. This week, we're in the Rainbow Nation of South Africa, and our proverb for today is: what you help a child to love can be more important than what you help him to learn. What you help a child to love can be more important than what you help him to learn. We'll start with you, Bwana Sheikh Maro. What do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think my interpretation would be that prior to the learning, you need to build the environment that is conducive so that the learner is able to participate in a very peaceful way and in the long run manage to learn what you are going to teach or whatever you are going to help them understand. Thank you.
Okay. Bwana Obuhatsa, what do you think about that?
I think to me, I understand this as that a child will be very, very happy to be in a safer environment, whether learning or not, because learning will come second. Yes.
Well, learning will come second. If you have the value, then it's easy. I guess. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting to see that. So let's get into these waters. They're a bit murky, but let's talk about how we're going to safeguard, children, their safety. How we're going to ensure that that be number one in schools. We give examples about some of these things because we can do pie in the sky conversations, but they don't make sense. So let's ground this a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, there was a story, horrible one, of a child whose arm had already been broken, playing, and broke his arm. What we heard after that story was that he had been beaten severely. And why? Because his teacher noted that he failed to write properly. Note, his lead arm is the one that was broken, but his teacher is now saying that he failed to write properly and he was writing with his lead arm, which was already compromised. So he was beaten, and beaten badly to the point whereby there were marks on his body. This was reported and it was seen. We moved on to another story. Interestingly enough, within days of this particular story, when a young boy said to have been beaten 120 strokes or something like that, where his back was in a terrible condition. And the reason as to that was, well, I don't know that there's a reason that warrants such, but he was severely beaten. Just last week, in one of the national schools, a girl was with food in the bus coming back from an outing, and they're not allowed to have school food in the bus. But she was beaten to the point whereby her classmates could not touch her because she was in such pain, beaten at her knees and her back because she misbehaved. These are just 3 cases in the last 3 weeks. And of course, we know the stories that we saw last year where, some teachers were making some young boys do horrendous things and were filming it. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the horrible things. But I want to set a caveat before we start to have this conversation, that in no way are we saying that teachers bear the brunt of this responsibility of how they treat students. And we are not saying that all teachers do this. We need to start from there. But we want to understand what exactly is happening, because if we don't understand the problem, we then are not able to offer or to discuss solutions. But then I will start with one question, Bwana Obuhatsa. Are learners safe in school? And I'm not talking about from floods or fire. I'm talking about, are they safe under the care of those, and this is especially in boarding schools, but not limited to boarding schools. Not limited to boarding schools, because some cases happen in day schools as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I thought we are talking about school safety in general.
Of course, this contributes to that.
Of what you're saying.
Yeah,
that is one of the issues that we can talk about. First of all, if I can define what safety is, safety in school is where the children, the teachers, and the non-teaching staff, and any other person, even parents, are well protected from harmful kind of instances, distress, emotional distress, and anything that can be said to be very, very harmful and not good for their lives. So from the instance you are saying, for example, where you find that teachers are caning children. In the first place, teachers are professionals. They have been trained, they are qualified. We have the Teacher Service Commission, the Code of Conduct, and we have also the Children's Act in place. We have the 2010 Constitution in place. We have the Children's, the African Charter on the Rights of the Children. And all these are instruments that are in place to protect the children in and out of school. Now, when you find that a teacher who is trained and qualified and certified to teach ends up caning a student, in the first place, the government does not allow corporal punishment. And it's well put in black and white. And all teachers have that information that they should not physically molest children.
No matter what?
No matter what circumstances.
Okay.
They have no right. They have no right. And not only even teachers, even parents have no right unless. So when we hear that a teacher who is supposed to be directing, guiding, and counseling a child is beating a student whose arm is not functioning well because of the poor writing, what's the role of the teacher? The role of the teacher is to support that child, to be able to encourage, to speak to this child and train him or her on how to write. Because that is why that teacher has been employed. That's why he's being paid taxpayers' money, government
money. Or perhaps even say, take a break from the writing to your arm heals. Something like that. Okay.
Doesn't matter, because the child, by the end of the day, the child is not disappointed with his or her handwriting. The child is happy because that's what she's doing and that's what she can do at that level. So why should a teacher who is supposed to be guiding and counseling and correcting the same, which is his or her work, ends up caning that child? That's the highest ignorance, order of ignorance we are talking about in the teaching profession. And secondly, I've said that children are protected by the Children's Act. They have the right. Where you find a teacher takes chance to slap a girl in the bus before other students, what do you think that this teacher is showing in terms of discipline? How dare does he go back to school again and talk about discipline to the children and to the staff members and another person, even to the parents? How will they take it? Because they have seen him slap that child. So correcting, he is doing what? The wrong thing. So how does he go back to the classroom and speak about discipline? How does he even handle duty at school? For example, when he's on duty, how does he handle his work? I would say maybe one of the reasons why these things are happening is because there is lack of supervision.
Okay.
Yes, because on the bus, when the students go on a trip, we as part of the association, we normally insist that there should be a board member as a parent from the board. There should be a senior staff member, either deputy or a senior teacher on that bus. Even the driver is also in control on that bus. So if there's a deputy who is in charge of discipline in the school, why should a teacher, a classroom teacher, take law into his hands, on her hands, to slap a child before the deputy watching? Yes, that's what you are saying. It's illegal.
Sheikh, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would want to agree with my colleague that a professional is not right for the teachers to cane the children, and according to the Children's Act, the Education Act, and also the Code of Conduct that has been provided for the teachers. But then again, I think there are issues which we need to look at, issues of counseling in schools. I think has been alluded by my friend again here. One of the challenges is that counseling has been delegated to the teachers, and we understand that the teachers themselves are not professional counselors, but they have some basic counselings because of a training or a workshop here and there, but they are not professional counselors. So that in itself is a gap, and you find that now some of these behaviors that the children are exhibiting, for example, they are not supposed to carry food to school and they are carrying food to school. That is an issue that required counseling. So I think that is an issue that we may need to look at if after all we want to address the challenges that we have. Then number two, I think we also need to look at the responsibility of the teacher here. He has academic work to do. We have these excursions here and there, very demanding tasks, and they also get stressed. So when they get stressed, where do they seek counseling? Where do they get the counseling services? They also have families at home. So we do not know or understand what is happening in their homes. So I think that is also in itself a gap that the teachers also need to get that support, psychosocial support and counseling, so that then at the end of the day, we have the learner is accessing counseling, and we also have the teacher. So I think measures should be put in place to ensure that both teachers and learners access counseling services, so that then we create a conducive learning environment, a conducive environment for all the people who are in the school, that is the school community. And by doing that, then we'll be able to have a harmonious living. Maybe a case in point is that in most schools, you find that the same teacher that perhaps my colleague is talking about is the one who is supposed to be the disciplinarian, and at the same time is supposed to be the counselor. So that overlap again creates that challenge and that gap. So I believe if then we are able to address the issue of counseling in the school, we'll be able to support the teacher and also support the learners.
Pana Chairman, if you look at the kind of examples and contexts that Ndu is painting, and we know that in the system that we have right now, the CBE is a tripartite union. There is a child of the learner, the parent, and of course the school, including the teachers, etc. But true to the fact is that there are certain things that happen that based on how you grew up, maybe a teacher who grew up in a school where caning and probably not corporal punishment was the way to discipline a child. But in the context of existence of laws, policies, all these guidelines, etc., you still feel like this child has done something that still warrants some sense of punishment. Where do we draw the line between students' rights and discipline, especially if you look at the kind of environment we're operating in today?
We say this: two wrongs cannot make a right. You look at the brain of the child and the brain of the teacher, they are totally different. The child is doing to please himself or herself. Out of that, we say what? Child is what kind of mentality? But a teacher is trained, he's qualified. And I use the word certified to teach, not to cane. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll give an example here. A parent called me the other day, and he told me that my son has been suspended for 2 weeks. The reason being, he didn't do homework. And he has been told to come back with a fencing wire. How does a fencing wire connect to homework? Just look at this.
Yeah.
Another calls me and tells him that the son has been suspended. And the reason is that he was found with a stolen shirt. The boy says, whoever sleeps under him, put the shirt under his mattress. He sleeps on top. And during inspection, the stolen shirt is found under his bed. So the boy at the top is innocent. The one down there is the one who did. But at the end of the day, the innocent boy is sent home and asked to bring 20 shirts.
Wow.
Now, this boy's parents is in Gatari. This boy is living with a grandmother. This is a very poor grandmother who does not even understand what is discipline in schools. But the boy is told to go home and bring 20 shirts. What do you think of that? This is a professional teacher who is doing this. And we are saying that there should be understanding of the learners. Parents have not taken children to schools to suffer. They have entrusted their children in the hands of the teachers. And one of the most important things is safety of the child in the school, so that the child can settle and learn. Now, the question of teachers revenging has been seen in some schools.
Revenging what?
I'm speaking. You listen to me. I'll give you that what they're revenging.
All right.
Yeah.
A strike has happened in a school. It's a mixed school. What's the reason? You go and find out. Let's go and find out what happened. In the course of investigations, what are you getting? In the mixed school, the teacher and the student are fighting over a girl.
Wow.
You see that?
Oh,
Wow.
come on.
Now, the
Honorable
teacher wants to
Hassan.
win. And this is a student that the teacher is teaching, fighting for.
Wow.
So sometimes teachers will take that kind of advantage and just mistreat the students. And that's why the government is saying that teachers have no right of caning children. The only way of disciplining a child is through guiding and counseling. Teachers must learn to listen to the learners. On the other side, let's not blame the teachers. Let's look at the students. What are the causes of indiscipline to some of these students? Some students come from homes where there's no discipline. Parents, some of the parents are totally indisciplined. They fight before their children. They talk ill of teachers. They do things, even what they do, you cannot imagine, before children. And because of that, their children borrow that exam and say, we shall also go and practice this outside. And the first place to practice is where? In school before a teacher. When a teacher comes, the student says, so what? If my father and my mother could fight, then me, I can also fight the teacher. I can fight back. So because of this, you find that there's that misunderstanding. Now, as my brother said, what is the treatment for this? Let's look at this. The Teacher Service Commission should retrain teachers on guiding and counseling, and especially the young teachers, with the CBE and grade 10 transition in place. Because some of these teachers go to schools, I will say, I've been in one school, some of the children are overgrown, but they're in grade 10. They're of the same height with some of these teachers.
True.
And of the same weight.
If not taller.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when they look at each other, they see, I can resist. So the teachers feel when the students don't respond as they want, like now that handwriting, the only way that the teacher can handle that case is through caning. Does not see, guiding and counseling, and then doing what?
No, I'm sorry,
Correcting.
Honorable Hatsa. This is a child who's got a cast on their arm. POP on their arm.
Yes.
The arm is broken.
Yes.
What genius does it take for you to understand that there's physical limitation at that point, and that no matter you can guide and counsel,
Yes.
but until a physiological process of healing takes place, that child is not going to be able to write. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. So it seems to me like it's not a matter of guiding and counseling in this case. This is clearly this child is prohibited by physical injury.
That's what I'm saying. That children are supposed to be protected from any kind of harm in school. And this teacher should understand. As well, there is a code. He has been trained and he has been informed that physical handling of children in form of discipline is illegal. There are many ways of disciplining students. Like that fellow. The child is hurt.
The child should not even be disciplined in the first place. He didn't do anything wrong.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The child, in the first place, I explained that the child is not wrong.
Yeah.
This is a sick child.
Yeah.
How do you beat a patient? You're a doctor and you're beating a patient.
Yeah.
Even if you give an injection, will he even feel like getting healed? He will see you are killing him. You're a doctor. So here, when the teacher is mishandling this child, what's this teacher trying to portray? He's trying to show that in him there's no sense of humor. He's not somebody who is unkind and couth. Someone who does not reason. And yet he's a trained and qualified teacher. That's what I'm saying. That teachers must love the children they are teaching. This is their work.
Sheikh, what do you think about that? And as you bring in your understanding of the balance between students' rights and discipline, about 2 weeks or so, I belong to a BOM of a school, and so we had a meeting with the head of public service. And part of the commitments that the Minister of Education made were that there would be deployment to schools of guiding and counseling teachers. I don't know whether you are aware about that and how far that has gone on, but you could also make some additions to the question.
Yeah, I do not have updates at the moment how far it is gone, but again, maybe coming to your question in terms of balancing children's rights and also issues of indiscipline, I think as mentioned by my colleague, teachers are professionals, and I think there has been so much effort by both government and development partners. I remember some time back, UNICEF supported the Ministry of Education in conducting training of teachers on safe schools model, and I think quite a number of teachers were trained on that. But again, I think it is important to note that there is teacher attrition. So you train the teachers, some leave, some retire, and again, we need to train them to build their capacity. And again, I think in colleges, the focus is much more on the curriculum rather than these other issues of safety, the legal instruments, and all that. So I think it's important, again, for TSC, once they recruit teachers, and not only TSC, because we also have teachers in private schools, once they recruit teachers, they provide some kind of an induction to teachers on these issues, particularly on issues of safety, and also the legal instruments that are there that guide the managing and handling of learners in school. It's actually ironical when you talk of teachers physically harming their learners. We are supposed to be empathetic, and that is part of the CBC. It teaches about empathy. So if you are not empathetic, then what are these children learning from their teachers? Because if the teacher is violent, then how do you expect the learner to become empathetic in your delivery of the curriculum? So I think there's a gap in terms of capacity building of the teachers. Fine, they are trained in college, but back into the classroom, back into the schools, they need capacity building, they need that capacity support so that then they are able to understand the limits of which they are supposed to do. For the case of this learner who had a POP, that is a temporary disability. And there is a way in which learners with disability are supported in schools. So probably I think that teacher did not have the skill or the understanding of how to manage this particular learner, because he has a POP. There are some who do not have POPs. They do not even have their arms.
Yes.
And they are learners in class. How do we support them? There are skills in which teachers are taught and they are able to support these learners, because we are talking about inclusive education, where we have all learners in school and we are able to support all of them so that they are able to learn. So I think, again, we go back to the issue of capacity building and supporting teachers by both the government and the development partners. And also, coming back to the issue that my colleague mentioned, you mentioned about, I think, the tripartite. You have the parent, we have the learner, we have the teacher, all of them working together. So I think there is also a need to enhance communication between the three parties. And as I mentioned earlier, the counseling also needs to extend to the parents, because some of the families have issues and these issues are reflected in school, and all that comes to the teacher. Then the teacher asks themselves, how much can I do? Teach the children, provide guidance and counseling to these children, and then you have the parent at home who has issues. Because there was a certain case or an example that was mentioned in one of the staff rooms that I was when I was teaching, that there was a learner who was being provided guidance and counseling. She carried some item to school, and when the teachers discovered that item, which I would not mention, it's not a good thing, then they summoned the mother to come to school. And then when the mother came, was casually asking the child, umebeba hii kitu ukakuja nayo shule? Then the teachers are wondering, we are trying to to advise this learner, but the parent herself is using this particular item. So how do we balance this? So I think there is that need for the counseling of the caregivers or parents, the learners, and the teachers together, and enhancing that level of communication so that all of us speak one language in supporting this particular learner.
Chairman, just a follow-up question on these reports that parents give to you, and there are reports that keep coming up, and how parents, I think, today have decided to deal with them, including their own personal concerns, issues, mental health, etc., is on WhatsApp group, where they post everything and they are, venting there and sending everything that is happening. But how did you deal with, if you could probably pick one of the cases, whether it's the one for the 20 T-shirts or the one for the barbed wire, how did you deal with it, and what do you think is the role of parents in enhancing school safety for our learners?
I want to come back to several years left before I can answer that question. That disclosure of information is very important because parents understand their children very well. They're the first teachers from home.
Yeah.
And you find that parents have weak children. Some are sickling, but when they go to schools, they don't disclose this. And you find that teachers mishandle children without understanding the background of what's happening. Despite the fact that mishandling is not allowed. So parents should always be very, very responsible their roles. They should know. Parents should practice positive parenting. You see? Like now that gadget that was taken to school coming from home. Parents are having it at home and the child takes to school. First of all, in the first place, where did it come to reach the home? It should have been the parent who brought it.
Self-custody.
Yeah, so the child says, let me now borrow from my father or my mother. I also go and show my friends in school. And that's found in school, and she lands in a problem, or he lands in a problem. So positive parenting is very important. And we are looking at this, that how can parents be trained on what we call positive parenting? Because this is the upright of bringing up children in life, that a parent should be responsible for his or her children. Because they wamezaa watoto, nani amezaa watoto? They have to give birth to the children. So the first teachers to the children are the parents.
Yeah.
And I have told that if you follow closely, you will find that sometimes the children who cause indiscipline cases in schools come from homes that are totally in shambles, like that. There should be a reason behind, because they also see from behind there that this at home is like this, so let me also take this to the school. So positive parenting is very, very important. Why do we say, if actually my role is what we call positive parenting, PEE, positive parental empowerment and engagement. We are trying to sensitize parents to understand what are their roles in life as far as providing for education for their children is concerned. What are they supposed to do? Because if a teacher has mishandled a student, does he give a right to a parent to come from home to go and beat the teacher in the school before the children?
I don't I don't know.
I see this. Does not give that. So the parents must understand that children go to school to learn. And now the teachers must also appreciate that the parents are the ones who have given that employment. If the parents fail to take children to schools to learn, teachers have no employment. Whom are they going to teach? They can't teach themselves. So they have to appreciate that. Now, the question of access to information, as I said, teachers should need to go back. And I would say that TSC deserves to prepare more lessons for teachers on issues of discipline. Because teachers have been always asking a very funny question. If we don't cane children, how else do you discipline them? And you have been repeating daily saying that there are many ways of disciplining learners. Okay? For example, this teacher with the handwriting, if the child didn't write properly, the only thing that the teacher should have told the child, repeat the writing again as many times as you can. And did you do what? You get it. But remember, it's also tiring. This is a disability child. It's tiring also, but give a limited number of times. Write 5 times, then you can write tomorrow, next week, until do what? You catch up.
Or how about just understanding that this is a temporary thing, and that we can give you reprieve until you heal, and perhaps we can use another kind of training to test your knowledge. But if you keep insisting that this hand, which is limited, to keep writing, you will not get the required achievement. You will not achieve the required results.
Actually, the first place,
it's obvious you won't get it.
You are discouraging the child.
So I mean, how about you use something else? And maybe that's the fundamental training that we're talking about here that clearly seems to be missing, and that. Because do we now point to these issues where we say, sure, teachers are overburdened? I mean, let's not even get to the horror stories of students or teachers who are trained in a particular capacity, but then have to take on other responsibility. You have the librarian who's also the guidance and we say, okay, we need a guidance and counseling. What are they called? I don't even know. Psychologist, whatever. We give it to the nurse. The nurse, since she treats people, can also be the guidance, career, whatever, counselor. Or we say, okay, you teach PE. How about you do guidance and counseling when you're not teaching people? I mean, come on. Things like that, we're already delegating that responsibility to people who don't have the capacity.
I was saying
what
this.
Do we expect to happen?
I was finishing this point. I'm saying this. I take your point, madam. That's what you are saying. We can have partnership. The Ministry of Health is very much willing and is very ready to supply the staffs. We have so many psychologists, nurses, doctors who don't have employment. And if the Ministry of Health is approached to support guiding and counseling in schools, they have the counselors. They can do that. The churches are there. We have very senior reverends, bishops and pastors who go to school. They can counsel the students. They can counsel teachers. So the process of going through this could be lacking. That's what we want, that the Teacher Service Commission should put mechanisms in place to make sure that teachers undergo mental issues. Is this mental things with wellness? You see that? A teacher has been in class from 6 in the morning up to 8 p.m., which is not allowed. They are forcing themselves to be there because there are regulations that children should be in school from 8:30 to 3:30. These are primary school children. And secondary school children should be in class from 8 to 4:30. But you see now, some school administrations want to show that they are performing.
Yes.
They keep teachers in class from 5 in the morning to 10 p.m. Now, this teacher is stressed, and here is a child who is not writing well. You see? So the teacher says, now the only way I can do it is through what? Revenge. Now, on your point about the teachers, this was a very tricky point because I had to go around to find the truth behind it. When the parent called me, the first thing I did was to call the school. And I got the teacher, the class teacher of the child. The class teacher explained that the case was there, but she could not handle it because it was now in the hands of what? The discipline master. So I asked for the debut, and I got the debut, and he explained the case. And I asked for the principal, and the principal came in, and actually the principal understood, and we saw that matter out amicably. Nothing like even a single shirt was bought, and the child was back in class within an hour after having been away for 2 weeks.
Oh my!
Actually, the school apologized.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of understanding that you want teachers to understand. That things happen, but let them not take law into their hands. These children are there. It's them who give them the bread they eat. If they're not in schools, what the teachers are going to teach? They must spare the children.
So, Sheikh Maro, there is this concern around rising cases of student unrest, fires. We see lots of insecurity and really lack of commitment by some school administrations to put in place safety measures. And suddenly something happens, a committee is put up, a local committee within the school, and sometimes even at the ministry level. Reports are done, but we continue to see a repetition of all these occurrences. What are the missing gaps, and how can we be able to sustain safety in schools?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll agree with you. A lot has been done generally by the government and also the school administrations, quite a number. But of course, much needs to be done. And I think basically it's an issue of limited supervision, which is required both at the school level and I think at the institutional level, which needs to be followed up. Because as you mentioned, it happens this year, next year, the other year, and then a committee is set up, you know, it investigates, then it puts up recommendations. I remember even at one point there was the issue of having CCTVs in dormitories and all that, so that we monitor the children, because there are those who carry fuel to school and burn in dormitories and something like that. So I think it's an issue of monitoring and follow-ups. And I would wish that the local stakeholders, that is the education stakeholders at the local level, because we have Nairobi and we have the local team, the county education, is it education board? Yes. Which needs to take up some of these things and support the ministry in terms of enforcing some of these recommendations that have been put in place. So I think that way we'll be able to address this challenge that keep recurring and all that. But more so, I will still go back to the issue of capacity building again, because when you talk of security or safety in school, it requires the parents, it requires the learners or the schools, and it also requires the Ministry of Education officials. So the Ministry of Education officials can play their role. The school maybe can play their role. But if the parents are missing in that link, we'll still have the problems, because again, it's an issue of indiscipline. And again, we'll go back to the same issue of counseling that we are talking about, because these learners, as mentioned by my colleague, some of them come from families that have issues, and they come and exhibit those behaviors in school. So it is important that we support the three layers, the school, the parents, and the ministry in terms of capacity building, so that then some of these issues are addressed at the right time. I think one thing mentioned and also related to your question is the issue of communication, which still remains a challenge in terms of learners having a safety way of reporting and confidential or anonymous. That is still lacking in some schools, though some efforts have been made, but that still is lacking because sometimes learners do not trust the system. So even if they have information, they are unable to share that information. And then again, administrators have a challenge in managing some of these issues, managing some of these learners. Again, we go back to the issue of capacity building, on issues of governance. How do we manage the learners? How, as BOMs, do we manage the schools? Because, as mentioned, a teacher and a student are fighting over a girl in a school. And then maybe the teacher wins and the boy decides to ban the school. So you will find there is a source. In as much as the learner has banned the school, there is the source. So how do we address? So I think these are issues of governance at the school level, and there is that need for all the players around that to come together and address these challenges. And I think that will be able to have a sustainable solutions to.
Chairman, when as a parent and as Sheikh says, the interest that I have is to get a school that really is safe for my child and the one that also performs. I think we have different push and pull factors towards which schools that we choose. But as a parent, what would be the basic safety measures of a school? What should I be looking at? There are schools where, for example, you walk into and there is no gate. Anybody can walk in, walk out. Nothing really happens. So what are these basic parameters of a safe school when we talk about learners' safety in schools?
Okay, even if I answer that question, I'll give some instances that I've seen that are not very good. And that's why I will see that I expect to talk about general safety of the schools.
Yes, as we come to that, yeah.
Yes, because we want to understand that how safe and to what extent are the children safe in schools. Okay, we only look at the boarding schools, but even day schools, there are many things that are causing harm to children. Look at this incident that it happened in Siaya account, where 4 students sank in a what? In a septic tank.
Yeah.
The same thing repeats itself in a school in Bungoma, Kamsinga High School, where the only child of that mother sinks the septic tank. Recently, the incident at Eldoret.
Yeah.
You remember this very well.
At the president's visit.
And we thank the president because he went to the scene and connected with the parents of the child that lost life and pray those that their children suffered. So the question comes here: does this school have a board of management in the first place? What is the role of the board of management in schools?
The infrastructure
development, and management. And that's what they are called, the boards of what? Management.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we need to have is that we should have well-versed members of boards of management as far as safety of the learners in schools is concerned. You are sitting on the school board as a board of management member, you must be understanding the roles while you are sitting there. Because you cannot tell me that a child will go and sing in a pit latrine of a school that has been existing for 20 years and that board has been sitting there. Hakuna siku ambaye hawa board members wamekuja kwa shule na wakasikia kwenda kwa choo na wakaona kwamba kuna shida.
Si wanatumia ya HOI.
Nakumbuka when I was one day I told you I passed behind the school compound and I saw through the fence I would see the students in the toilets because behind the front of the part of the toilets is like this where we are sitting here. It's very clean like this. But behind, the face behind there is empty. There's nothing. And nobody bothers this. But this school has what? Has a board. This school has a principal. This school has a headmistress. This school has senior teachers. This school has parents. So one, the board management must be trained on issues of school safety. The second point, some schools just look like, even some marketplaces are better. Some schools have no fence around them. You just see even giraffes crossing the school compound, where preschool children are playing. You see, the children are running, touching giraffes, and being kicked. And you see, so school protection is very important. That schools must be protected. Schools must be well fenced, and that's why we are encouraging that schools must be what? Kept enclosed.
Yeah.
Closed.
We are talking about a school where the teachers value the learners, because the learners are under their care.
Sure. So when there's an understanding, for sure there's the understanding.
Yes.
And so Shay, coming to you, and because human nature will play in any of these scenarios. And that's why you then need a second level of support. And the Ministry of Education, in some sense, at some point, invented this idea called education quality education officers. You had education officers who were in the quality department.
Yeah, quality assurance.
That's
Director
what I
of
was.
quality assurance.
Thank you very much. That's what I was looking for.
Yes.
They are around the country. This thing that we talk about essentially is what they are supposed to go and ensure is in existence. But over the years, we've seen the degradation of that office. And whether they actually go out to ensure these things, we don't know. In the previous administration, term 2 of the previous administration, a school collapsed. It was the Precious Talent School in Reruta. That school collapsed. We were waiting, and if that report is in the annals of the Ministry of Education somewhere, we don't know. But it was President Uhuru Kenyatta at that time, and he said, and he was very clear, we need a report on the standards of schools around the country. We want every school listed in this country with some of the things now that Obuhatsa is talking about. Does it have a fence? Is it more than 2 stories? Then does it have reinforcement? I don't know if that report was ever given. I remember very clearly that it was supposed to be on the 31st of October. It was not made public, but maybe somebody said, and they said, okay, the situation is too bad, so we cannot make this report public. We don't know. This is just speculation. But that essentially is what this quality assurance department is supposed to be doing within the Ministry of Education. Do we know whether there are regular surveys, sites, visits, inspections
Yes.
by these quality officers? Do we know assurance officers?
Yeah, they are
Okay.
there. That department is there, and I would say it's very much active on the ground. But I think sometimes it's also important to be realistic. Like where I come from, some of the stories my brother is sharing, they are real. Elephants will cross across the school compound. From where I come from, most of our schools do not have fences. Yes. And some time back, some of the schools do not have even toilets. It's a bush separated for ladies.
One bush here, okay.
Yes. Those are realities on the ground. And sometimes it's also issue of resources. And as you mentioned, the issue of the BOM follow-up. A lot has been done. There has been a lot of support, particularly in some of those areas. I think NGOs have done quite a lot of work in terms of supporting infrastructure development in schools, including latrines and school fences. But not all schools have the fence.
Should you have a school? Should you be given the go-ahead to put up a school if those facilities don't exist? Because we're playing catch-up here. And we're saying, okay, so now you have a school you can teach. But these other amenities, which are crucial towards this entire ecosystem, then don't exist. Who gives you the go-ahead to say, fine, please go ahead and set up your school?
We are talking about realities on the ground, and we are talking about access.
Yeah, so the reality should be, don't put up a school then if you can't do it.
You have learners in very extreme environments and very far from mainstream schools. And the parents just start some shelter somewhere where the children can access education at that point, with the view that resources are going to be allocated, classrooms are going to be constructed, fences are going to be provided. But I think, as my colleague mentioned, the BOM have powers to make follow-ups with the respective offices, the CDF, the county government, and even the ministry in terms of providing those resources. Of course, the quality assurances will come and make their inspections. They will come and see those learners, because at the end of the day, every learner has a right to education wherever they are.
So do these quality assurance officers actually take a report back when they say, yes, we've assessed the situation and it's okay? They say it's okay,
they
or
even have
what?
a checklist.
Yeah, they say we've checked this. They tick.
Yeah.
Somebody signs. Then you have a director of education at the end of it who says done, dusted, checked, certified.
Okay.
Or what happens?
It is done.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge. But again, issues of resources. I'm not defending government, but those are the realities.
Oh, it's government you're talking about. They're saying they don't know. No.
I'm saying
I'd rather you say that the assurance officers come and tell you that this is the case, and then the school management tells you, well, it's because we don't have resources. Government should not say that the reason why those schools have not been properly equipped is because of resources. Because there's money for a lot of things.
I'm talking about the communities on the issue of the resources.
Okay, if the communities are the ones
they do their reports.
Okay. All right.
But Chairman, in such a scenario,
there's a point I wanted to mention, but I think you can proceed.
This will come back. Sorry.
I just wanted to find out, in such a scenario, like what Sheikh is describing, because he's saying from where I come, these things are happening. What should parents do? Because we know that we are competing with 100% transition. As I said earlier on, some parents also want performance, so they are going to schools that they think are performing. It is many interests that are being balanced. But when you get into a community, and we have so many of these stories, realities on the ground, where equipment is not there, infrastructure is not there, but parents' interest is that our children are not at home. They are in schools, but these schools have nothing. What should parents do in terms of advocating for safe environments and for everything that a proper school should actually have?
The first thing I'll speak about is that, Kenyans think that schools are owned by the government. Private schools are owned by the owners for business.
Correct.
And the owners of private schools must carry the responsibility
100%.
at the end of the day, because that's business. If it was a shop for a Muindi, it gets banned, the Muindi will go to the insurance to get what? Payment. So a private school is owned by an individual. That individual has the responsibility, first of all, of making sure that the school is safe. The parents in that school are stakeholders, major stakeholders. They must also be closer to the school. We feel sad that there are some parents who never go to schools. They want to hear from their neighbors. You are in schools and you are told that we should pay 20 shillings for capitation fund. They never go to schools. There are parents who never attend school meetings, just to go and make their suggestions.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm saying that parents lack access to information because of their ignorance of being not involved. You find a school that is very tough. And let me tell you, schools that are performing, if you follow, you will find that there are rules and regulations that take place. Even the question of safety comes first in that school. So the parents of those schools are part and parcel of the management of that school. They are there every day to ask the principal. I was here yesterday and I saw a bush there. Has that bush been cleared? There are snakes. But the parents who just always imagine that the children are in the hands of teachers, they have no business.
They don't even go to pick their report forms.
They don't even know what report forms are. That is information.
Form.
They don't even know.
You didn't hear there's a bush for girls and
So, what are we saying? Parents must understand that they own schools. The schools are in the communities, and the parents must go to schools regularly to go and see what the schools look like. There are no parents that have gone to a school to inspect the school and the principals have sent them away. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Parents went to inspect a school. They are waiting for the government to go with the government. They are the government. So, the question of quality assurance. The quality assurance officers are there. But there has been a cry that they are not well supported. Because some schools are kilometers and kilometers away from their offices. They cannot walk. They need to be provided with vehicles and drivers and fuel to go to those schools and carry out the what? The inspection. So when you find that the quality assurance officers don't have full support, they also get discouraged in a way that we are officers, but now we are here. Why should I walk 20 kilometers to walk to a school that belongs to the government and parents are there?
Okay.
And nobody will give me transport. Just I will be waiting for salary to come. That's the other thing. The question of, she asked a question whether the Kibaki task force gave a report.
It was Uhuru. Yeah.
Actually, before that, I think before Uhuru gave this, Kibaki put a task force in place to go to schools, walk around the schools and check about the school safety. And they went, even checking the grills and whatever were removed. If that kind of force was pushed on even today, many schools will be very, very safe. The schools that are getting banned with children inside will be very safe. When Uhuru came in, he also put the same in place. I remember during Hona Matiangi's time, he went to a school somewhere in Nakuru and found a goat in the dormitory. Mbuzi, mahali penye wanafunzi wanalala. You know what he did? The first thing that Matiangi did was to dismiss the principal. Because what is the Mbuzi doing there?
The dormitory.
Nani ya nani? Ya principal.
Wow.
So Mbuzi kaya dormitory, isinyeshewe, wanafunzi wako nje. Why is this happening? Because parents are not concerned. They are away from the school, their own business. Now, what are we saying? To make sure that our children are safe, our teachers are safe, the non-teaching staffs are safe in schools, we should have a yearly task force visiting schools every year, because schools are getting new constructions every day. They are digging pit latrines every day. They are making septic tanks every day. It's a continuous process.
So who is we? We should have. Who is this we? This is the government or the
I'm
school
saying
administration?
the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the parents, should put up a task force for the safety of the children, because parents must be involved. Like now, I'm in the process of talking to the CS. Actually, we are doing this, following what has been happening. The CS approached me and is very kind. And asked me, Chairman, what can we do? And we talked and said, maybe we think of having again another task force again, to go back to the schools again and inspect, to understand that with now grade 10 children in place with these sinking toilets, how safe are they?
Indeed.
This is a very good idea. If we can borrow that, we can do that. Secondly, the quality assurance officers, whether supported or not, that's their duty. They cannot be staying in offices leaving children dying. They must find a way of doing what? You have been employed. You are being paid a salary. Don't wait for a Land Rover. Use what you have been paid.
Just do your job.
Go and do your job and complain later on. School managers, principals, and teachers must be in service regularly on school safety. Then finally, parents must be fully sensitized on access to information and how they can play their role to support school safety measures.
As a last thought from you, Bwana Sheikh, if you were to give a number, our time is running out, but if you were to give a number in terms of school safety for learners between 1 and 10, 10 being the best, where would we be now? And with your final comment.
Yeah, for me, I think I would put it at 8. Because,
Wow.
Yes,
so
because
high.
we need to look at the percentages. And that doesn't mean I'm downplaying the numbers of students who have been affected and all that, but there's a lot of effort, even in terms of legal provisions to support safety in schools. But what is required is the capacity building of teachers, the capacity building of parents, learners on issues to do with school safety. There was a point I said I was forgetting, is on issues of school safety audits. He asked a question as a parent or as an administrator of a school, what would you check first? Whether has a fence or no latrine or whatever, it's important to do risk assessment. Like even the issue of the sinking
septic tanks.
Those are issues that would have been addressed if risk assessment has been done. We are told of a learner who died in a swimming pool. If a risk assessment was done in that particular school to identify risks and mitigation, they would have been addressed, so that the learners are educated where it is risky to go, where it is risky to play, and in that manner they will be able to avoid those places. So risk assessment and safety audits are very important. We identify the gaps, and in that way we are able to address these gaps and ensure safety of each and every person who lives and works in that particular school. Yes.
These are conversations that we cannot tire to have, but we want to thank you both gentlemen for being here with us this morning. And
last point.
Time in 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds.
Yes.
When it comes to the issues of discipline of the learners, we are asking that the teachers should first of all understand themselves beyond what they see. They should accept themselves that they are found in this job. They must accept it. Teachers, learners, and parents must be centered on issues of school discipline. Thank you. And safety.
Thank you very much, both gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Sheikh Maro is an educationist. Silas David Obuhatsa is the National Chairman of Parents Association. We thank you both for joining us this morning. And thank you for finishing March with us in the Situation Room. It's 2 minutes past 10. Kev, Asante Sana. And we continue these conversations. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.